depending on the day, the week, or whatever, somewhere between a 6 at the low end and a 7.5 at the high end. So like basically borderline passing, you know. I would have loved to see Robert Kennedy Jr. As president. I think, you know, he, much like Trump, gets misrepresented more often than not. Again, not to say, you know, he doesn't have any faults similar to Trump. I think less so. Of course, not as esteemed of a business person, but as I just covered, I think a lot of that is kind of misplaced. And then going back, I would love to see a Ross Perot type, you know. That, to me, the ideal sort of modern leader for
his
this
ideologies
country.
were just phenomenal.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of it was true. I've talked about this a few times that the first time that he ran, apparently on election night, he was doing pretty well, looking to have like 15-20% of the vote at the time, and then got a call that like, hey, we have your daughter, or something. Like he got a call like that. If you don't drop out of the race, you know, something's going to happen with your daughter. And I don't know how true that is, but it sounds plausible, right? You know, as bad.
The left has used basically everything in their power to just do that, stay in power.
Yep. Well, I think it's both, right? Because as you were talking about, you know, the Republican Party, oftentimes having great solutions that can never get enacted because you have the left, you know, saying, hey, well, one, if we don't get credit for it, kind of like Obamacare, right? That was originally proposed by Mitt Romney, right? You know, but I think it's really been exposed that we really have more of a uniparty sort of system, because they would much rather have it that they always have a 50-50 chance at getting one of their people elected into office, versus what I think would be ideal, have nobody listed on any ballot. And if you want to vote, you have to write in the candidate that you want to vote for.
Yeah.
And that really, you know, does away with the party system by and large. That way it's not, I'm just going down, you know, the red team, or I'm going down the blue team. If you're not literate enough to, and I don't even care if like you need to write down your ballot on your arm going into the ballot booth, you know, to make sure you spell the names of the candidates.
Candidate, right.
Yeah. You know, obviously that's very idealistic, but I could see that as a way to, you know, bypass this two-party system that it's really, again,
well, there is only one
by
party.
name.
There is only one party for the people.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not the Democrats.
Yeah.
They're not for the people. They are for themselves. The corruption, and I posted something on Facebook this morning about their corruption and how good they are at manipulating situation to blame the right. How good they are at manipulating just about every freaking young mind in this country. Anybody with common sense knows that 2020 was stolen. Do you know Dinesh D'Souza?
No,
you don't know Dinesh D'Souza? Write the name down. He's made a movie about that entire corruption during 2020. The man is a brilliant. He's just plain brilliant. He's just a phenomenal man. You can listen to him and his oration about government corruption and all this stuff. He's just brilliant.
Okay.
And watch his movie about
2,000 Mules.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
2,000 Mules. Watch the movie. It's going to open your mind about the corruption that went on in 2020, where they had people stuffing ballot box. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about putting one envelope, which is what they should have done. I'm talking about a stack of envelopes in ballot box. You're going to tell me that, like in Fulton County, they were pulling boxes from under table and they covered all the window with cardboards. All of this in that movie.
Yeah.
So people could not see what was going on. No, but before Christmas this year, in the next month or so, there are some things that are going to come down. They're going to rise the less blood pressure.
Well, I think something similar. I don't know exactly to what extent, you know, there's election fraud, election interference, like in the very tangible sense. But I do absolutely think in every single election that the United States has ever had, there's been some non-zero amount of election fraud, you know. So it's just how much of it happened in 2020, enough to change the tide of the election. I'm not sure. Was there a lot of media bias and misreporting that probably had just as big, if not a bigger effect? Yes, and I think that's where a lot of the rhetoric comes from. Hey, the election was stolen. Yes, where there's some probably stolen votes, like very tangibly speaking, but I think even more so, it was the very clear bias that we saw through the 2024 election as well. Hey, we're just going to cover everything pro DNC
Yeah.
and anti-Trump
Yeah.
and nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And I think going back to even 2021, there was a lot of misreporting around the January 6th insurrection, right?
That's coming to light before Christmas.
I think a lot of it already has for people that have been willing to actually have an open mind, right? Like, I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016 or 2020 because I did think, well, he may not actually be the divisive one. He's just too divisive in the way that people think about him, right? But again, it came down to 2024. I was voting and campaigning for Robert Kennedy Jr. He made it clear he's not going to be able to see the race through and, supports Trump. And it's like, it does become, I hate to say, very black and white, but it was about as black and white as it got there. And I think as far as the 2021 January 6th event, you could see Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, literally a month prior, made it so they were the ones that had to be that had the authority to call in the National Guard, where people were trying to blame Trump for not calling in the National Guard, and it was actually Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi had to give authority to the head of it was either the mayor of Washington, D.C. or the head of the Capitol Police of Washington, D.C., who, again, wanted to call in the National Guard. But, Trump, Trump literally did not have the legal authority to do so. But, he follows due process.
That was a total fiasco,
Yeah.
and everything is